Didn't we end up with a parallel?
Straight.
No, no. It always looks so good in plan. Maybe that's our mistake. We don't keep it that way. Anything in here.
Yeah.
Legitimate?
Yeah.
Still legitimate.
It's legitimate.
Moshe Safdie, Canadian architect. In his Montreal office, he plans the redevelopment of the area around the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem.
It's a problem. We're going to run into.
Jerusalem, city of cities, a spiritual ideal for centuries. Its history, its architecture, its holy places make it unique. Architects and planners are redesigning the 4,000-year-old city to meet modern demands. The confrontation between tradition and growth provides a lesson for Canadians, as it does for people everywhere.
The problems of the building of Jerusalem are in many ways prototypical to any other city. The problem of providing the citizens with good transportation are problems that every city confronts. The problem of building good communities which work with good social services, open space, density, all these things are common to all other cities. But in Jerusalem, they seem to be much more acutely focused because there's more existing that might be destroyed, so that we can deal with Jerusalem as a problem that focuses the problems of all cities, but we feel them more strongly.
The more life is simple, the more life is natural, the more life is pastoral, the more life is relaxing, the more it will help people to feel the message of Jerusalem. And Jerusalem communicates this to you.
Hassam
In
El
as much
Khaldi,
that, it must be within yourself that you find your own salvation.
an Arab
That
citizen
within
of Jerusalem.
yourself, there should be the goodness. That it is inside yourself that will give you the motive to life, the motive to satisfaction, and the feeling that your life has been worthwhile.
You see, 100 years back, people built in the old city and even outside the walls,
Yes.
in harmony with the city. They lived in the holy city. They managed to build houses which did not destroy it. They managed to live a rich life and economically sound life without, in harmony with what existed.
I was born actually in one of these houses where you walked into complete darkness until you came to a beautiful courtyard with jasmine, roses. A person had respite in a house like that. Unlike a modern house, he was able to forget his work and really to forget all the exigencies of life. And I've lived also in the West, where I have found that a person can carry his worries with him wherever he went, until he finished in a lunatic asylum. Yes. in those courtyards, there was something that really helped you in order to maintain a balance in life. So was that a bad thing? I mean, are we to consider that everything old is not useful and is bad? Or can't we combine both?
Sarete voi quando vi oltraggeranno, vi perseguiteranno e falsamente vi accuseranno per causa mia. Preghiamo. Oh Dio, tu sai che per la fragilità umana noi non possiamo resistere ai così grandi pericoli ai quali siamo esposti. Concedici dunque la salute dell'anima e del corpo, per Cristo nostro Signore. Padre nostro, via singeli, santo, vicino nome tuo, avveniat regnum tuum, fiat voluntas tua, sicur in cielo et in terra.
It's not a business city. It's a praying city. It's a center of religion, but not a business city.
Amen.
Padre nostro, via singeli, santo, vicino nome tuo, avveniat regnum tuum, fiat voluntas tua, sicur in cielo et in terra.
מבחינה זו אני לא פוחד. I don't fear Jerusalem as an industrial center. That couldn't be. It's not logic. There is no river, no port on the sea. It could never be an industrial center. But there are different kind of industries, religious industries, many kind of industries that could be done, tourism and everything.
What? Watch it, Jonathan. Sorry.
Jonathan, get over here.
Well, the tourist industry has a very great future in Israel, and especially in Jerusalem. 98% of the tourists coming to Israel are visiting Jerusalem, because Jerusalem is holy to all the great three religions, the Jews and to the Christians and the Muslims. So I would say that the tourist industry is the heavy industry of Jerusalem.
Moshe Kol, Israeli Minister of Tourism.
Like in other parts of the country, I believe that Jerusalem will one day be a city of 1 million population. But we have to do everything to preserve the beauty of the city.
No. I buy this 2.5.
No. What is it?
This is all the view of Jerusalem. Panorama.
Okay.
The added value of the tourist dollar is the highest, 79%. That means from each dollar is left 79 cents in the country, because we have not to pay for the raw material. The raw material for the tourist industry is presented by God or by ancestors.
I'm very much afraid that if you decide that this is going to be a metropolis, you're going to destroy Jerusalem.
Amos Elam, journalist and author.
The beautiful hill town that we know it, if it has 1 million inhabitants, it cannot survive. And I think we have to.
A lot of education.
And you know well that most of the arguments to have Jerusalem grow do not stem from a love of the city, but from what I would consider misplaced political considerations. This imposes not merely limitations on growth, it also imposes limitations on administration, on culture, and on the sociability of this town. The rest follows from it. But the trouble is that both the Jews at the moment and the Arabs will not agree with that. For the Jews, this is the holy city. For the Jews, this is the capital of Israel. All the rest is subservient. One of the reasons why these new housing estates in the northern sectors, above all, but also in the southern, have been set up, as Ron Benveniste rightly said, they were not put up to make this town bigger or more beautiful or better or easier to live in, but because an attempt was made to strengthen the Jewish presence in Greater Jerusalem as it was. This was the determining factor. There's no reason to dump 500,000 more people here with all the industry and the blight and the slums and the poverty that goes along with it.
نحن لنا عذاب إني شفخ دم كان تدعو لخير كل والله نهرب كل حاجة قعبان لا ما كان نحن نلعبوا بو بتمكنوا بو بجميع التركيين ما في حد أساس طلبوا كانوا يصيروا خسرنا براتي ساكل
أنت المكان إزاي؟
وتانو لا معانين والله لو نزوز إن نفخت مجنال اتكعر على فيها أنا عاطفني اليوم
أنا طيرت فرحانة
والله حلو نوت الزهام أنتوا ده تسموا تخبي حرارات شما
شو يسموا
במקום שיתנו דירות כמו שצריך.
ואל תדבר זה, ישימו אותה בדירות פה. זה מדובר. זה אחר כך יתנו לנו בעיטה. טוב, אז זה אל תדבר. חביבי, לא רוצים ללכת בגלות. אתה לא רוצה, הנה היא רוצה. היא רוצה.
אני מעדיפה שהילדים שלי לא יחיו ברטיבות ובמדרגות שכל רגע הוא נופל לי, שהולך לדלת.
יכולים לתקן את הכיוון.
איך יכולים לתקן? אין פה יכולים לתקן, בבקשה. למה בדירה עם 3 חדרים כמו שצריך, ולא חשוב לי בכלל באיזה אזור לגור. אני לא חושבת שצריכים, בגלל שגרו 50 שנה אז כאן, להישאר תקועים באורוות האלה ובחורבות. איזה חינוך, אם ילד יושן בחדר אחד עם ההורים שלו. אני חושבת שהרבה זוגות צעירים חושבים את אותו הדבר מה שאני חושבת, אבל הזקנים לא. מפני שפה ההורים שלהם נלחמו ופה הכל. זה לא נכון. הם שישארו, אבל אנחנו, כל הצעירים מוכנים שיפנו אותנו, ייתנו לנו דירה תמורת דירה וזהו. לפי שטח הדירה שיש לי, ייתנו לי דירה. אני לא רוצה יותר.
Ezra Joseph Levy, a major private developer in Jerusalem.
אני בונה כל אדם שירצה לקחת אצלי דירות, קונה אצלי דירות מחוץ לארץ, בארץ, העיקר לכל השכבות.
ואיך אתה בונה?
אני בונה לוקסוס, בונה עממי, בונה...
אפשרויות שנתנו להם על מנת שיוכלו לרכוש דירה. בעיית הדיור בארץ ידועה לכל אחד, לא צריך לספר את זה. אנחנו עד היום, אני חושב, אם אני לא טועה, בכל אופן, כמה שאני יודע, למעלה מ-150 עד 170 בניינים, שזה אלפי דירות, 10,000 חדרים.
One of the interesting elements in the life in Jerusalem, when you want to say where you live, you never say, I live in this street and this number. You always say, I live in this neighborhood, opposite this house, but you tend to forget your own street name and perhaps also the number of your home. And I think it's significant.
Miron Benvenisti.
It's because this is, I think, the only city in Israel.
City councillor.
It's a city which has a character. Because the human element in Jerusalem is, I think, more important. I don't know about any other city in the world, but I know about any other city in Israel. Tel Aviv is a great housing project. Jerusalem is a city. You have here a mosaic of neighborhoods, of people. It's a different thing. The human element is being kept. The moment a Jerusalemite will be identifying his own house by the street name and by the number of his home, I think the human element is lost. And this is one thing we should keep. And the development of today, of this huge housing projects, of this high-rises, when you don't only have to remember the street name and the number, but also your own number of your own flat, is going to be the end of what I know as Jerusalem, and I was born here.
Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Hello?
We are fighting the last battle. The only way we can at least keep it, being Jerusalemite natives of the city, is at least to save the core of the city.
For centuries, the city was built and rebuilt with native stone. But today, the ancient skills of the stonemason are required only for the renovation of old buildings or to provide a facing for the new.
He make new. Always his life, he work with the stones. Look his hands, because always from the hammers, and just, that's too strong, yes. Look at this, it, like the skin very hot, from the hammer, working very well. Look at this, I go in. 21 days, and make this. 28 tons, by hand is made it. not by machines. Yeah. Yeah, by hands.
I don't think I agree that I want Jerusalem to be entirely a museum piece. I want it to be a city in which people live and which people love, but a city which has not lost its character, which has not lost its special something which it has, you know. I don't know what it is, but it does have something which we are spoiling, which we are ruining. I mean, you can build a metropolis anywhere in the country. Does it have to be in Jerusalem? Why not allow Jerusalem this freedom, this possibility of presenting the spirit of the ages, really?
Cities everywhere are growing. Each day, new demands are made of them. Each day, they change. Their character is a reflection of the people who live in them, and life in them is molded by their quality, their structure.
In Jerusalem, increasing population, a tourist boom, political realities have helped create a need to expand and modernize. But the new is often out of joint with the old, out of harmony with its character, its values, its tradition. Hotels and high-rise apartments are spreading across the hills that surround the city. The Mount of Olives, Mount Scopus, French Hill. The controversies they create are a major concern for the mayor of Jerusalem, Teddy Kollek.
A year and a half ago, I invited some outstanding architects and town planners here. Very few of them were Jewish. The vast majority of them were Gentiles. They're the best town planners in the world, and that tried to warn us against all the mistakes they themselves had made in all their cities, whether it's Stockholm or Philadelphia or Los Angeles or wherever they came from, and they came from all over the world, or London. They have made all the mistakes that they can make. And I think this outcry, which in some ways was a little hysterical, I think in the long run will have a very beneficial influence. It gave us the strength to fight against the 6-lane highways or against something like French Hill happening again. I hope so.
I think when you compare this village of Silouan with French Hill, the issue of master plans becomes very clear. Because both on the master plan are shown as a yellow tone denoting housing. And yet this village of Silouan and French Hill are totally different environments. A master plan up to now has been a quantitative statement. It has said nothing about the quality of environment. And if we try to understand what are the basic differences between French Hill as environment and this village, and if we can then transfer this knowledge to a master plan document, we might be able to come to a point where the quality of environment is assured when we have a city like Jerusalem grow. And so the question is, why is it a nice place to live in? There's public spaces like the big green at the bottom of the valley, and then there's the private spaces and the roof terraces, and it climbs with the topography, and there's hardly any repetition in it. There's no standardization. The individual family is very clearly identifiable in the total. So the scale of it, the resulting scale is very satisfying and non-threatening. And I think the ingredients of the scale of the housing, its relationship to the topography, the identity of the individual dwelling in relationship to the total village, the use of roofs, the materials. All these are basic ingredients that differentiate Silouan from French Hill, which has a totally different scale, which suppresses the scale of the individual, which is oppressive, which has no relationship to topography, which has no expression of a community whatsoever. And it is these basic differences at the qualitative level that we must have to understand when we want to build in Jerusalem.
For the Jew, 2,000 years of religious devotion are represented by the western wall of the Temple Mount. For him, this is the very heart of Jerusalem. The adjacent plaza and the war-torn area around it is being redesigned by Moshe Safdie.
At that point, I started seriously questioning the concept of a flat plaza with buildings around it. I felt that if it was a flat plaza, at the times when we would have 3, 4 people praying by the wall, which happens late at night, they would feel completely desolate. But on holidays, there might be 50,000, and on special occasions, maybe 100,000 people. So it is necessary to find a way in which the place makes sense for any kind of activity, from an individual to a great massive demonstration. And out of a whole process of thinking about it that way came the idea of creating an amphitheater of plazas that starts with the Jewish quarter on the cliff and comes down terrace by terrace, making the praying level all the way down to the Herodian level, which is about 9 meters or approximately 30 feet below the present level, making the height of the wall almost double. One of the reasons that I came to the amphitheater, that I said, what would the Herodian architect have done if he was dealing with that problem? He would have naturally linked it to the city, which is what I tried to do with the amphitheater. I felt making a plaza is making this a St. Peter's, which it is not. You can't erase 2,000 years of history, and for 2,000 years this was representative of something else. And therefore this is still the place of longing, anticipation, and expectation of something. It has the significance that no building will compete with. In fact, the public buildings that I feel should crown the plaza should be, in terms of the design, totally integrated and subordinated to the series of terraces, so they don't have a building-like quality, they have a landscape-like quality, like part of the amphitheater, so that they don't compete with that wall. It's a kind of a space that 500 people could feel comfortable on their own, 3 could feel comfortable, and 50,000 could feel all right. And it hasn't got the overpowering, bombastic qualities of the Renaissance piazzas, where you came with a group of people to relate to one object, whether it's the Pope on the terrace or whether it's the church at the end. There's the focal point that justifies the plaza. There's no focal point. In fact, one of the reasons I feel that the amphitheater should face the wall, the totality of the wall, and not focus on one corner of the wall as the praying does now, is that there should not be one point. The entire wall should be focal. It's not a point, it's a linear thing. A linear thing is not an object.
One of the first buildings to be constructed here is a yeshiva, a rabbinical college, on the same site as one destroyed in the War of 1948.
The building ascends from the Kotel Plaza 10 stories all the way to the top of the Jewish quarter. It consists basically of 2 construction systems. You've got the massive wall, which runs right around the building and within it, and it is 10 feet thick, and it has within its thickness light shafts, air conditioning, ducts, horizontal passages like the arcade, vertical passages, anything that needs horizontal or vertical continuity. And within that is a very intricate precast arch-like method of construction, which can form a small residential room, which is 20 feet across, or form a room 100 feet across, or the synagogue 100 feet across. And as the rooms get larger, they also get higher. The volume of the synagogue is 6 stories high, the volume of the Bet Midrash is 3 stories high, the volume of a residence is 1 story high. And you have the interplay between the light, lace-like, very contemporary construction and the massive stone wall, each serving the other. And so that from the city, you've got the blank wall with a suggestion of what's happening within it, suggestion of the spaces and the complexity of it, and the suggestion of the entrances, which are kind of concealed. I think that many things about the building are very typical things to Jerusalem. It's very typical to Jerusalem to walk in narrow streets or alleys and to come upon a wall in which there's an innocent door, and that innocent door happens to be the entrance to a major complex. But until the point where you go through that innocent doorway, you're never aware of the presence of the thing, even though it might be a few feet away from you. This happens all the time in Jerusalem. You've got the trees sticking above the walls, you have a suggestion of something happening, but you don't realize it till you've gone through that you're in another world. And they're kind of enclaves, and this is very much like a walled city. And I look at the opportunity of building in Jerusalem as a place where we might be able to recreate these values and their physical expression in a contemporary sense. In other words, for me, life is so meaningless if I was to accept what Aryeh calls the modern world. I really don't want part of it. And since I project my desires to be those of everybody else, that's the only way I think an architect can honestly function, I say to myself, what are those things about the house in the old city, the court, its entrance, its identity, its privacy, its sense of community? What are they, and can we reproduce them in the modern world? And if we can, then what we build new in Jerusalem might not be in disharmony with what exists, because if it generates from the same value system of life, it would be in harmony with it.
Make it unique. Architects and planners are redesigning the 4,000-year-old city to meet modern demands. The confrontation between tradition and growth provides a lesson for Canadians, as it does for people everywhere.
The problems of the building of Jerusalem are in many ways prototypical to any other city. The problem of providing the citizens with good transportation are problems that every city confronts. The problem of building good communities which work with good social services, open space, density, all these things are common to all other cities. But in Jerusalem, they seem to be much more acutely focused because there's more existing that might be destroyed, so that we can deal with Jerusalem as a problem that focuses the problems of all cities, but we feel them more strongly.
the more life is simple, the more life is natural, the more life is pastoral, the more life is relaxing, the more it will help people to feel the message of Jerusalem. And Jerusalem communicates this to you.
Didn't we end up with a parallel? No. It always looks so good in plans. Maybe that's our mistake. We don't keep it that way. Anything in here.
Yeah.
Legitimate?
Yeah.
Illegitimate.
It's legitimate.
Moshe Safdie, Canadian architect. In his Montreal office, he plans the redevelopment of the area around the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem.
It's a problem. We're going to run into.
Jerusalem, city of cities, a spiritual ideal for centuries. Its history, its architecture, its holy places